Hey, this is Troy from Planet 76. We've got some really good Sixers-focused content coming your way today. Make sure you subscribe to the pod so you can be in the know when we release new content. Enjoy the show.
Welcome, everybody, to Planet 76 Podcast. I'm your co-host, Michael from Trust to Love, and Troy's here with me. As you know, this is Planet 76. I believe this is episode 23.
Close.
24.
24.
Yes, all right. Anyway, episode 24 of Planet 76, coming off of a huge Sixers win against the Chicago Bulls. Before we get into the episode, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Go follow us on Instagram. Subscribe on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. Everywhere you get your podcasts, go give us a listen. You will not regret it. So with that being said, let's get right into this episode. Another Planet 76 off the dome, because we have not written any notes after this episode. At least I haven't. No outlines.
Right.
We're just going straight nosedive into this and seeing what happens. So Troy, I'll let you take it away, and let's get right into it.
Let's do this. Yeah, it seems to be the trend lately. We're kind of just, this is 20 minutes after the win in Chicago, and we're jumping right into it. It feels good. So Sixers are winners of 6 straight to improve to a record of 8-2. A really good week this week. A 4-game week, a back-to-back in there, home and away, and they were able to get the job done. So they beat the Trailblazers this week. They beat the Pistons at home. They beat Chicago at home. That was this week, right? And then Chicago on the road tonight, Saturday the 6th. So good stuff. And I think it's worth mentioning just how shorthanded they've been and how weird it's been. And so I don't know if we just want to jump in with that, but what do you think makes the Sixers, how are they doing this? Because these are games where you think, okay, yikes, on paper it doesn't look good. Sixers started who tonight? Paul Reed, there's no Danny Green, no Tobias Harris, no Matisse Thybulle. They go into Chicago, who has played very well to start the NBA season, and they took care of business. Why and how and all that fun stuff.
I think it's a combination of Embiid playing somewhat decently and that next man up kind of thing. I haven't really heard much from the players from the Sixers saying anything about it, but you can see it. It's just Furkan stepping up, Niang stepping up, Curry having a great stretch of basketball. Just guys stepping up. Shake had a good game tonight. When our main guys are out, certain players step up. That's a huge characteristic of a good team, and actually a great team, really, because that's what happens when that's the makeup of a great team. Guys make it happen when others aren't available, sick, injured, whatever the case may be. And just I feel like chemistry has a lot to do with this too. Like, these guys have been playing together. Well, most of them have been playing together for a season and 10 games. And it's just, the environment is probably just, I'm not in the environment, I'm not in the locker room, but it just seems like these guys are clicking, really. And I think we mentioned that last week as well, but it's continued because, like you said, 6 games in a row now, starting from last Saturday, actually, when we recorded this podcast. Well, before that.
Hawks, yeah.
But Hawks, Blazers, Bulls, Pistons, Bulls, and then last week was the Pistons again, I believe. Not this past Thursday, but 2 Thursdays ago. Right. Trending all the way from back there.
Yeah, after the rough game in New York, it's been smooth sailing, and the Sixers get a rematch we'll get into, I'm sure, here in a little bit. Sixers get a rematch with the Knicks coming up on Monday,
yes,
the 8th, so that should be a good one in Philly. Hopefully we can have a different outcome in that one. Again, that was the Sixers' last loss. Only 2 losses to New York teams, the Nets and the Knicks, so Hopefully we can turn that around. But I like what you said. I mean, I think, Joel playing somewhat decently. He had a huge, especially first half tonight, had a couple. Everyone, it seemed like, had a big bucket late. I mean, Niang hit a shot late. Tyrese hit a nice mid-range late. Embiid had a nice mid-range late. I'm probably missing somebody, but it just seemed like, because the Bulls actually took the lead in the fourth tonight, and I was like, oh boy. And Sixers got it right back. I think Embiid hit a 3 to get it back, so he had a couple shots late, actually. I mean, what else can we say about Furkan Korkmaz, too? 25 points
Beast
tonight.
mode tonight. He played so well. I think he only missed 2 threes, or maybe it was 3, but even still, that's amazing.
He had 6 or 7 threes. Yeah. Very good from Furk tonight. It just feels good. Chemistry's a big thing, like you mentioned, Embiid. My thing, I think, for the Sixers' success so far, early season, and even again against, you want Tobias Harris in the lineup. You want Matisse Thybulle in the lineup. You want Danny Green, I think, in the lineup. And yet they're winning without those guys. And so my reason for success for the Sixers has been their play at the guard position. So that's obviously, especially point guard position, has been a question mark coming into the year. Like, what the heck's going to happen? Who's going to start? Are we going to trade for somebody? Is Ben going to play? Is that, just a lot of, like, who the heck is running that position? And so when you go through stretches where you don't have Tobias Harris, where you go through stretches where Embiid is not, let's just say, not MVP caliber yet, kind of thing, he played very well tonight. And then, so you got to rely on your guards. If your second best option is out, Embiid's not fully Embiid yet, you got to rely on your guards. And so I think a big shout out to Tyrese Maxey, Shake Milton, and Seth Curry. Just for in spurts, one guy plays best at, any given game, and they feed off one another, and they've looked good. I think they're a huge reason as to why the Sixers are 8-2 right now. Those three guys. I mean, it's been good to have Shake back. He had his best game of the year, I think, this week. I forget who against, but they just look good. So I'm happy with their play so far.
Yeah, they really look good. Guys know their roles. Guys are stepping up when necessary. And I think just really, aside for maybe tonight, because there weren't many guys on the bench, but the bench really, Milton, Korkmaz, Niang, Drummond, and Thybulle. Thybulle contributes on defense, obviously, and on offense when he can, but when he's available. But the bench, the bench has really been one of the highlights of the season so far. Obviously, we can't talk about George Niang enough. We can't talk about Drummond enough, and it's just everything is looking really good right now. I know it's only been 10 games. Sixers are 8-2 right now. They're 8-2 now, right?
8-2.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's just like when things are going well, you have no complaints, and then that's when you got to realize, okay, it's not going to be like this forever, unfortunately. So we got to realize, like, hey, Sixers might have a bad stretch, so let's take everything equally, kind of thing.
Yeah. If we're being honest, this isn't the episode where we're going to be scrutinizing a lot of what the Sixers have been doing. We're going to praise them for what they've been doing, and again, shorthanded at that. I've got a stat for you. So the Sixers in, I guess it was the 7th game of the year against the Blazers on Monday when the Blazers came to down. Shout out to Damian Lillard and the chance he got. The Sixers had a season-high assist total in that one. They finished the game with 34 assists.
Wow.
And that starting lineup that night consisted of Tyrese Maxey, Seth Curry, Danny Green, Furkan Korkmaz, and Andre Drummond. So no Embiid, no Tobias in that one.
Wow.
And they do that. 24 of those 34 assists came from the starters. Came from 4 of those starters. Danny Green only had 1 assist, but they had Andre Drummond and Tyrese Maxey each had 7, and then Korkmaz and Seth each had 5 assists.
Wow.
They were sharing the ball.
Movement,
and I think that game overall is a testament to kind of how they've been able to get it done without some key pieces and that kind of thing. It like you mentioned, it's been next man up mentality, and they've really, really done that. You don't know who it's going to be any given night. Tonight against the Chicago Bulls, we needed Korkmaz to do what he did, or we weren't going to win that game. I think it's as simple as that. And so when you have a guy that just steps up any given night, two, I think it makes it hard for defenses to plan and to scheme and to figure out, okay, who's it going to be? Like, okay, we shut down this guy, but then Niang goes for 18. Like, I mean, these guys are playing really well together, and they're feeding off one another. They're sharing the ball, and so I think if they keep that up, we can keep this thing rolling.
Definitely, and I just hope things go this well for as long as possible, because this team and the fan base, I mean, not so much the fan base, but the team really, and Joel Embiid, needs just a stretch of just not even dominance, just consistency, really. And I do want to highlight Drummond for that game on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
15 for 15 boards and 7 assists and 5 steals. That was some I don't even know who type numbers, but that was wild. So I'm really impressed by how Drummond was able to actually be a huge part of the win. I mean, he has been this season, but as a starter, he was awesome.
Right, and we've talked about that. Those games where Embiid is out, what's he going to do?
Right.
And he delivered in that one for sure. That was huge. That's exactly what we wanted.
Yep.
And so hopefully, again, when Embiid misses time, he can do that. Man, all smiles here on Planet 76 tonight.
Very rare.
I think we're both feeling good about that win. Let me bring up a topic of discussion for you in particular, because you've been very vocal about this, Mr. Trust the Love.
That's me.
Even tonight you were vocal before we went live, and I was like, ooh, let me ask him about that. You know what this is about? Number 25.
So, yeah.
So you've been vocal lately, just so everybody knows, catch you up to speed on Mr. Trust the Love, been very vocal about the Sixers. Hey, they're a better team without Ben Simmons. They're a better team without Ben Simmons. They're a better team without Ben Simmons. I don't know what your DMs have looked like after you make posts like that. I imagine there's a mixture of, I agree, you're an idiot, that kind of thing. I don't know. So I'm going to give you a chance to tell us why. Tell me why. Tell the fans of Planet 76, okay, I mean, hard to argue with you. Sixers are 8-2, but it is a small sample size. Why do you say that the Sixers are a better team if Ben Simmons is not out there?
All right, so I will say everything that I would like to say. It's probably going to be a few minutes.
Let's go.
But I do want to preface it by saying the DMs I get are actually a lot more surprising than you'd think, because they're a lot more like, oh, yeah, that's true, I agree, and all that stuff, than you suck, I love Ben Simmons kind of thing.
Okay.
So, all right, so here we go. So
let's hear it. Yeah,
so,
I'm very curious.
First thing I want to say is that you can visually see. Like, you don't need stats, you don't need advanced crap to see. You can visually, on your TV screen, wherever you watch the game, see that the Sixers offense it looks so much better. It flows so much more naturally with a point guard who actually shoots the ball and takes shots and gets to the rim and gets to the free throw line and all this, who actually scores the ball, who actually is a threat to score the ball in general. The offense flows so much better, not to mention the fact that when you have a guy like Maxey on the perimeter, or any point guard for that matter, who shoots the ball, the game becomes so much easier for Embiid. Not only does he have to not overcompensate for the point guard not shooting by taking more threes, but he also is just able to play his natural game, which is down low in the post. He doesn't need to worry about clearing the paint for anyone because he's the guy down there. Everyone else is on the perimeter. Not only that, on top of all that, he has 4 guys to kick the ball to when he gets doubled, tripled, sometimes quadrupled on the perimeter. Everybody outside of Embiid can make shots. Embiid has guys on the floor at all times who can hit threes, who can dribble, drive, shoot the ball, pass, whatever. He has guys like that. Every player around him can do that. And every guy outside of him cuts. They make moves off the ball. They do things when they don't have the ball. When Simmons doesn't have the ball, he's not doing that. He's standing still. He is a ball dominant player, and that's fine, but it hurts the Sixers offense even more.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these dimensions of the game become so much easier for Embiid, become so much easier for the Sixers. They're not so reliant on, put Ben in the dunker spot. What are we going to do with Ben? Like, they have a point guard in Tyrese Maxey who they don't have to worry about because he's moving without the ball. He cuts. He's, trying to get open off screens. Because he can shoot, because he actually tries to shoot, and he wants to shoot the ball. And even the defense, honestly, a lot of people were like, "Oh, our defense won't be anything without Simmons." People have to understand that Joel Embiid is still a fantastic defender. Matisse Thybulle, even though he comes off the bench, fantastic defender. Danny Green, pretty good defender. He's kind of fell off as a defender, but it is what it is.
He's still, he's savvy.
Right. It's just, I was saying this before the season. I don't know if you know. I guess you do. I'm assuming you do. I was saying this before the season. Like, I've been ready to see what the Sixers offense has looked. I've been ready to see what the Sixers offense looks like without Ben Simmons, and I'm very pleased with what I see because this is what I was expecting. Joel Embiid has space to operate wherever he wants. If he wants to shoot, he can. If he doesn't want to, he can get in the post like he's supposed to do, like the dominant low post player that he is, and do his thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's
well
all.
said.
Yeah, thanks.
Well said. You brought the facts to back it up. And it's hard to argue. Again, Sixers sitting at 8-2, and the only thing I would add, in regard to the defensive end, neither of us would take anything away from Ben Simmons defensively.
No, not at
amazing. All. And I don't think we have seen, other than, stints during that game against the Nets where I, am watching the game, I'm talking to myself, I'm like, man, it'd be nice to have Ben out there right now to do something defensively. Other than that, I haven't had that, and I'm sure, other moments will come throughout the season where it's just like, whether it's a guard, whether it's a guy like KD, whether it's Kawhi, you want a guy like that out there. But I guess through 10 games, it hasn't been as much of an issue as I would have thought, or hasn't been as much of a, at least I think for me personally in my head, where I'm thinking about, oh my gosh, I wish Ben was out there. This would make things better defensively. Hasn't been that case, so it's been good. I mean, Tyrese has shown some flashes defensively. I think Shake has as well, and obviously we know what some of the other guys can do. Tobias Harris, too. The dude has just improved. He improves every year. He doesn't get enough recognition. I'm looking forward to him being back out there for the Sixers after his 10-day quarantine or whatever the heck it is. Same with Matisse. Get him back out there. So life is good.
And it's funny you mentioned that because I was actually thinking the same thing. Maxey and Milton are not they don't look bad on defense. They certainly can hold their own, and even though Maxey's a bit undersized, he's tough. He will pressure you. He will pester you on defense and make it difficult as he can for you to score the ball.
Yep, and that play on Cade Cunningham the other day, or it might have been, was it back-to-back possessions where he got one and then Matisse got one?
Oh yeah, that was that. Yeah,
that was pretty sweet.
On their Instagram.
Yep, that was pretty sweet.
Yeah.
So, Sixers are looking good. They like playing together too. You can just tell. So they're fun to watch. I got a text, 5 minutes after the game said, "I love this Philly team," and it's just hard to argue with that. I mean, I love watching them play too. So things are going well. So so we introduced a new segment last week.
Yes.
Two new segments, kind of part of one thing. Player of the Week and a Shout-Out of the Week. Player of the Week is simply, we're going to go back and forth with this one, kind of alternating. Player of the Week, for those of you that weren't here, is the Player of the Week, who we think is the best player for the Sixers. Sixers won 4 games this week. So I'm going to let Michael choose that one. And then a Shout-Out of the Week, different, could be a player, could be a coach, could be... the Sixers' three-point shooting this week was great. Just something in particular that stood out to you across the week, and I'll give that one. But I'll let you go first. Who is your player of the week here on Planet 76?
And before I got it, this was Troy's idea. I got to give all credit where credit is due. Troy thought of this, and it was a great idea. And like he said, we're gonna be doing this every week because it's good. It's solid. So my player of the week is now okay. I wanted to give it to someone else, but I was like, I kind of have to give it to this guy. I'm giving it to Korkmaz. I have to. Amazing game tonight. He's had a really solid stretch of basketball so far. And I will say, something that I think we may have talked about on the podcast before, probably the offseason. He's looked a little better defensively, I think. Mm-hmm. I think. Just my humble opinion.
Furkan Korkmaz, player of the week. I like it. Well deserved. Certainly, we said it. Sixers don't win that game without him tonight against the Bulls.
True.
Put up 25. Yeah, he was good. I like the guy. What it was, let me see. Furkan tonight in 32 minutes was 9 of 13 from the floor, 7 of 9 from 3. Had a plus-minus of 16, plus 16 off the bench. Wow. Solid choice for player of the week. 6 boards in there for Korkmaz, too. My shout-out of the week is simply the Sixers' offensive efficiency. You touched on it a little bit. So, offensive efficiency. I think they're leading the league right now in field goal percentage. They just look good. They look like a good offense. They're sharing the ball. Again, the assist numbers this week. Gosh, if you have a game with 4 starters who aren't even starters every time and have 5+ assists, you're going to win a lot of basketball. So they're sharing the ball, and they just look pretty freaking efficient on offense. They're making shots. There's a different guy every night. Niang had some couple big games this week. Korkmaz obviously had a couple big games. Eminem, as I like to call him, Milton and Maxey had some big games this week. So it's refreshing, and I think it's refreshing too because we're not so heavily relying on Joel Embiid. It's cool to think that we're beating teams. Now I get we've played the Pistons twice, but the Red Hot Bulls, the Blazers, we're beating teams when Embiid doesn't play his best, and we don't have Tobias Harris. That is not on paper. That's not a recipe for winning.
Doesn't happen very often.
It's just not, and guys are stepping up, and the offense is a key part of that. So that's my shout out for this week. What I've noticed.
Solid, and I do want to touch on kind of maybe backtracking a little bit. When you mentioned about the what I was saying about the sample size thing, it's only been 10 games.
Right.
In my opinion, the whole Simmons thing, I feel like regardless of the sample size, you see what you see. A sample size could apply to how well a team is playing, or if a team looks bad, but they're going to be good, or points per game. This guy's averaging 30 points per game. Oh, well, it's only been 4 games.
Right.
It's just, for me, when you're watching the Sixers, you can just see it. This isn't something that's going to last 5 games and then stop.
Right.
It's the same team. They're going to play the same way if they are able to. And without Simmons, they're able to do that. So I don't think it's a sample size thing. I genuinely think this is a trend that's going to continue simply because the Sixers can play this way right now and for the foreseeable future. So I don't think it's a sample size thing. I just think it's something that, like I said, you can see it on the court. You can see when you're watching the game how the team looks, and even if it's against a bad team, or I'm sorry, a good team, the Sixers are going to play this way. So it's just something you can see, I think.
Right. Yeah. I think that's well said. I just thought of something as well.
Okay.
I'm looking at box scores. I think I'm right about this. So the Sixers, we know they won 4 games this week. And I'm actually really liking doing these podcasts on the weekend, so we can just kind of recap each week. This is week 3, kind of flowing together nicely. 4 games, and I think they won those 4 games with 4 different starting lineups.
Wow.
So we know against the Blazers, that lineup consisted of Maxey, Curry, Green, Korkmaz, and Drummond. And then against the Bulls, The following game was Maxey, Curry, Thibault, Korkmaz, Embiid. All right, and then against the Pistons was also kind of a mess. Shake Milton got the start, so he has not been named yet, so that's a different lineup. Shake Milton, Tyrese Maxey, Seth Curry, Matisse Thybulle. You look at this box score, it says point guard, shooting guard, shooting guard, shooting guard. I don't know what you consider Matisse Thybulle, but that's what it is on ESPN. And then Embiid. Tyrese Maxey played 45 minutes in that one,
crazy.
had 20
Matisse
against the
is
Pistons.
A guard. People are like, oh, he's a power forward. He's a guard.
And then tonight, Paul Reed started. So it's like, 4 different lineups for the 76ers and 4 wins this week. I like that. I like that a lot.
Wow.
Explain that. Do your best to explain that.
My best to explain. I just think it's really is guys making the best of the opportunities that they're given. Like, even though everybody basically has a spot on this roster now, everybody has their roles. It's just these guys want to win games. They want to step up and do their best when they can and make up for the absence of their star players. Tobias Harris, Danny Green's not really a star, but you get it. And I just think it's that kind of... I was trying to think of a word to describe this whole situation of the Sixers winning regardless of who's on the court. I couldn't really think of anything besides resiliency. I don't even think that's the proper word to use, but it's just the Sixers winning no matter who's on the court against, doesn't matter who they're playing, it seems, is definitely encouraging and just awesome, really. Like, it's great to see that.
It is. And we've talked about it before, I think. Because in years past, you can go into some games and count it as a loss, just given injuries or whatever it is, and the Sixers this year are winning some of those games where it's like they're shorthanded. Again, we've said it 18 times, but the 4 different lineups against the Bulls twice and the Trailblazers once and the Pistons in there too. I mean... And the first back-to-back of the season, they took care of business there. It's just good. I mean, we can go on and on and on. Good vibes only on Planet 76, episode 24, right here tonight. But life is good. I don't know what else you want me to say. So I love this Philly team. You love this Philly team. If you're listening to Planet 76, chances are you love this Philly team too. And Sixers do have a big one coming up. Kind of a big one. Keep this train rolling along against the Knicks on Monday night. What's your thoughts on that one? I'm very curious because you hit the nail right on the head talking about the physical defense of the Knicks when we played them the first time, and that was very much the case. That's why the Sixers lost that one, I feel. So what can be different this time around?
Well, just play physical. Embiid needs to dominate in the post, because there's no one on that team that can stop him individually. Obviously, that's the case for most teams when the Sixers play them. But Embiid needs to be a little bit more physical. The whole team needs to be a little bit more physical and not lose a quarter by like 10. And I think, Tobias Harris, they had their full team when they played the Knicks last week. So not having Tobias and maybe Danny and probably Matisse, definitely going to be a little bit tougher. So, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. And somebody, it's funny you mentioned that the thing before, because somebody asked me, "Hey, what do you think the Sixers are gonna? What do you think the Sixers' record is gonna be in the next 6 games?" And I just took a screenshot of their schedule, and I was like, WWLL, whatever. Yeah. And I posted the Bulls. I said L, something like this is a trap game or something. Right. And then somebody was like, "Hey, you said the Sixers we're gonna lose." So it's like you think the Sixers are gonna lose to good teams, exactly. But then they absolutely surprise you and they win. So you're like, I may have predicted a loss, but I'm glad I was wrong.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think either of us would have been surprised had the Sixers gone into tonight.
Right.
Paul Reed in the starting lineup, no Matisse, no Tobias, etc. and they lose by 15, and we're like, okay, on to New York. Like, I don't think that would have been a huge shocker to anybody. I'm pleasantly surprised with how they handled it tonight, leading most of the way, handling a little bit of adversity in the fourth quarter, and coming through in the end with a win. So they got 3 straight home games this week: New York, Milwaukee, and Toronto, before the gauntlet of a road stretch we've touched on before starting next week. Oof, that's going to be interesting, to say the least. Yeah, West Coast road trips are not fun.
Especially
and we have to stay up late.
Without probably without Harris.
Right.
So that's where things could go south for the Sixers fan base. So this is why I said earlier, make sure we are, we're being equal on this trip right now, because we have some fun times coming up. So when things aren't going so well, let's remember this time and let's realize, like, hey, it's just the ebb and flow of the season. Like,
yes, listen back to this episode and just
exactly.
smile along with us when things could get rocky.
Perfect.
On that road trip. So New York, Milwaukee, and Toronto this week. Let's do it. Hopefully we can get some more wins. I'm going to end with this, just because we talked about it a few weeks ago.
All right.
And I think it's worth mentioning. I was like, hey, what if the Sixers start really hot? I don't know if you remember this. What if the Sixers start really hot? What does that do with the whole Ben Simmons situation? If they're start hot and Tyrese Maxey's playing well, he's showing that he can be a point guard. Well, 8-2, they've started hot. I think the situation has died down. They suspended him or something this week, or fined him this week or whatever.
Almost $500,000.
Yeah. So all I'm saying is, again, the point I made a few weeks ago was that if the Sixers start 2-8 or 3-7. The situation there might be more rushed. I think Sixers feel good about where they're at and not feeling a need to rush any decisions and stuff like that. So, at least that's what I said a few weeks ago, and I think that's coming true before our eyes. I mean, 8-2, Maxey and Milton are playing well. Seth Curry, I don't think we've talked about him enough. Shout out to Seth Curry. The dude is so good. He's so good. He's got to have a career this year.
Definitely.
18 through 10 games. Look for him to keep that up. Sixers have 7 guys, I think, and averaging double figures so far, and all between like 20 and 10. Embiid's only around 20 points, and yet the Sixers are 8-2. Vibes are up. Planet 76, episode what?
24. Yep.
24.
Yep.
And I think that's it. That's it for me, at least.
Definitely.
All right. We will see you next time for episode 25 on Planet 76.
Yes. What's going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to Planet 76 Podcast. Please consider subscribing. It helps us out a lot and lets you know that you enjoy what we post. So thank you, and peace out.